It is time for the 12 days of business. And I'm so freaking excited to nerd out and make these GIFs. Every day there'll be a new video or article or something that shows folks what a gift visual thinking can be. I've got it outlined, and these ideas both rock and roll. And I can see these so clearly in my head and how useful they will be. Yes? 12 videos, huh? That sounds awfully ambitious. Have you met me? 12 videos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And for every one of those videos, you need to write a script and record it and edit it. And a million other little things. You keep Sesame Street out of this. I've done big projects before, and besides, this is going to be freaking fun. You are so weird for thinking work is fun. And while you're having fun, didn't you want to get that email out to the people in the A.k.a. method? Oh, but wait, you can't do that until you update the interface and you add those visual trackers you wanted to add. And isn't Susan waiting for a reply back to her email? And wasn't there that interviewer who reached out, but you haven't responded, so you're making the best impression? I think you should sit down and answer some emails. But then there's just more emails. And how many emails are in your inbox? A lot. A lot. I think you should sit down and unsubscribe from some stuff. Well, that's just dumb. You're dumb. No, I'm not. In this time, you could have replied to Susan, or added those trackers, or, I don't know, taking your tinsel tree out of storage because it's December. Zip! What's the matter? Is this too much? I think you should clear your head with a little scrolling. And that is my number one reason to use visual thinking, is to shush that inner critic and reduce overwhelm. Erase overwhelm. Get it out of the way so I can get going. And very, very simply, visual thinking is getting what's going on in here, what's in your head, out and onto a new surface. Yes, that's simple. But let's look at what most of us do when we have 1,000 things to do. Classic format for getting the stuff out of our head and onto a piece of paper. The to-do list. So I want to create this series of 12 videos, as my inner critic was so kind to tell me. For video number 1, I'm going to have to write a script. I'll need to record it and edit. Video 2. Write the script, record it, and edit. Oh, by the way, I want to do this 12 times. This gets a lot less fun when you notice that kind of repetition. So, as I said, I want to message folks in AgMe. That's my core online course, the A.k.a. method. I want to tell them that the 2025 cohort starts January 17. I want to tell them that there are 2 new visual trackers on day 1. Oh, and about the updated interface, making the whole darn thing even more organized and clear. Now, these aren't done. Well, this is done, this is not done. So, on my list, finish updating the interface, which really, that should go up there. And add 2x visual trackers. And that should go up there. And really, maybe, coulda, shoulda, woulda, all of this should go up there. Before I get to do the fun stuff. And yes, I need to reply to Susan. And yes, follow up with the interviewer. And yes, I need to pull the tree out of storage. And yes, I need to decorate the tree. And. So what happens here, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, is that the to-do list works until it doesn't. And there's two big reasons it stops working for me. For me, the first thing is when it gets so long, I'm just overwhelmed. Just as overwhelmed as I was before I sat down and grabbed this piece of paper. The second challenge is right there in the name, list. That is this to-do list is linear. When you're making a list, you are getting stuff out of your head onto paper, but the choices to organize are super, super limited. We put the first thing down. We put the next thing down, and then the next, and the next, and the next. And that order is not necessarily the order the work needs to be done in. So you start running into, how do I get these things in the correct order to be done? So first I want to show you a great alternative. And second, after that, I'm going to show you my favorite alternative. First thing we're going to do, we're turning our page 90 degrees. Look at that. So now, instead of having that list, we're making, oops, we're going to misspell, landscape. So now, a simple shift in 90 degrees, we can put our ideas anywhere on this piece of paper. Instead of portrait, where we're so used to going from top to bottom, left to right, and top to bottom, now we can put our ideas in different areas. For example, with the video project, I could, over here on the page, say, Visma series. Let's say, I'm probably not going to have enough space for all 12 numbers. Oh my gosh. That's why she gets paid the big bucks. So instead of making a list, I could make a grid. One of my favorite, very basic versions of a visual tracker to keep me clear and motivated as I draw all these fast lines to make this grid that might or might not be the right number. Let's say I can do this. This can be script, write the script. This can be record the video. This can be edit the video. And this can be post the video. And then each day here, we can add the topic. So now I've got something that helps me see things in relationship to each other. I don't have to write these over and over again. And as I go, I can fill these in so I know precisely where I'm at. I can work this way, I can work this way, whatever way gets the work done. But now I can see the entire project at a glance that feels very different than this. Also, I can say, okay, you know what? There's a few emails I need to get done. So let's go like this. Just getting myself a little like email, our little envelope symbol. So emails I need to write. I definitely need to write Susan back. I need to write that interviewer. And I definitely want to write folks that are in AgMe. So now with this, I have grouped the 3 email actions, email tasks that need to be done together. So could sit down and do these all at once because they're grouped together. Now, what I want to do is tell the AgMe learners about that cohort, the trackers, and interface. Right? So those are things that I want to message them about. And here, because these things need to happen before these things, I can do add trackers to day 1. And then that'll feed into this. I can do finish updates to the interface, which will lead to this. So you can see I can relate different things. I have far more choices in how I lay out what there is to be done. 1, I can see everything at a glance here. I know exactly where I'm at in that particular project. 2, I can group similar things together. 3, I can put things that have to happen before other things farther left on the page. Naturally, at least here in the culture or the way we read images, we tend to think about images from left to right and from past to future in this direction. So an option if you're looking to get stuff out of your head in a different way that might get less overwhelming than a super long list. New opportunities to see how those different tasks fit together on a piece of paper. One piece of paper, one landscape, a terrain where you can see everything at once. Next, I will introduce you to my favorite alternative to the landscape. We talked about the list. Then we moved to the landscape. Now, here's a friend I'm going to introduce you to that I've been using for over 30 years. The stack. Very simply, we're putting one idea, one task, one thing that's on our mind onto its own index card or sticky note or little scrap of paper. Here, it's about making our thinking modular. And I'll explain why that's so freaking important very soon. Now, only thing is 2 things. It is useful if all of your pieces of paper, whatever you're using, are uniform. Same kind of size, makes it easier to sort out and shuffle. This case, I've got a bunch of cards. Some are thicker, some are thinner. I'm not sweating it. 2, a whole lot of them. So you are not slowed down by grabbing more index cards. I find that I think I'm going to use this many cards, and then I just use a fraction. And even that is useful information to go, you know what? You might have a lot on your mind. You don't have this much on your mind. And past that, now I have something to draw on to make my thinking modular. Again, one task, one idea per, in this case, index card. Next, what am I going to draw with? Some kind of black pen. Papermate Flair is always my go-to because it feels good. I like the way these marks feel on a piece of paper. You may have a different choice. So all we want to do here is have a thinner black line. I think it's super useful to have some kind of thicker black line to make a title across the top of the index card. And depending on how your brain works and what you need, I love to grab more Papermate Flares in different colors so I can color code my projects. Now, this works because I've been using the same kind of colors across projects forever and ever, amen. There's no friction. It doesn't slow me down. In fact, it just helps reinforce what I'm doing. If you are somebody who doesn't already have, this color means this, don't mess with this. Don't worry about it. I don't want this to get in the way. Now, when you grab a stack of index cards, sometimes you get to discover exciting things that were written on index cards before.
I love this. This index card says ice, cocktail napkins, styrofoam cups, ranch dressing, 2 12-ounce bottles of chili sauce, and decaf coffee. Sounds like a party. Now, I could very simply just cross that out, use the other side of the card. Really forgiving, really simple. These are not works of art. They are, all this is a little scrap of paper that I can put a single thought or idea on and keep moving. So, reuse sides, fantastic, whatever. It is actually very, very rare I have enough to say about a particular project to need the second side, because I want to be able to see everything on the first side when I am looking at everything and pushing it around. Now, at this point, all I'm doing is getting the stuff out, each thing on its own card. Super quick example, you do not need to see all the things that are in my head. Who, heaven help us, that cause the kind of conversations you saw earlier. But as an example, here is a card. This particular case, it says existing AGME to Studio 25. That makes sense to this brain. It's encouraging folks who are already own the Agerbeck method course to join us in studio membership in 2025. And I've got a title across the top in a thicker black line, all caps. That's just the way I make the title on every stinking index card that I'm making when I'm using the stack. Why? One, I make the decision once, I keep on using it over and over again. It's fast. I don't have to make those decisions. I just know that's the way I write a title across the top. Two, I always know where to look for the same information. And three, when I have these lined up in any kind of box, I can see the title at the top. Pretty darn simple. Now, past that, just I got down any smaller details related to this topic, this thought, this idea. Nothing fancy. Like, just get it down. Have a place to put it. It happened that when I made this particular card, the first thing I wrote down was like, oh, right. There's a whole lot of work that has to happen before that happens. It gets its own card. Now, later, I can sequence these and pull out exactly what I want to do next. So if you're like me, where when you start thinking about things, it feels like a fractal where all sorts of other ideas branch off of the thing you just wrote down, that's exactly when you just grab another card. Very adaptable, very forgiving, very relieving. Another thing I have done with my stacks forever and ever and ever is using the corners for different information. In this case, one of my patterns is I like to put the date in the lower right-hand corners if there is a date attached to that particular card. But that's just an example of getting stuff out. As a new thing comes up, grab a new card, keep moving. 24 cards. Just in a few minutes here, didn't time myself, just in a few minutes here, what felt like dozens and dozens and dozens of thoughts and ideas and projects and questions to answer, decisions to make, people to follow up with, stuff to do. What felt like dozens and dozens for the moment was 2 dozen. And all I had to do was make sure I got each of those things on its own card. And as I was doing that, I'm noticing that the tension is releasing. The overwhelm is reducing, because what I was carrying around here in this fast, messy, noisy brain now has its own place. It's captured in its own place, has its own place to live, its own place to be. Also noticed as I was going that the ideas were slowing down because my brain was emptying out in the best possible way. More ideas will come. That's okay. I can come back to this spot right here. So today, working in the studio, I'm just going to leave these materials here. So as new things come up, all I have to do, I don't have to make decisions. I don't have to take myself off track and get distracted. All I have to do is get that idea on its own card, add it to the stack, keep moving. That's it. So again, noticing how I'm feeling in my physical body, having a place for these ideas to live that's not up here. Second, this using a stack is incredibly adaptable and forgiving and flexible. All things we need when we have fast, messy, noisy brains that can't stop thinking, that cannot stop coming up with brilliant new ideas. And in this stack of 24 cards, some of these just have a title. Some of them have much more detail. Some of these cards are things that have to be done today. Some of these cards are things that like I haven't thought about in 3 months. Some of them are things I don't have to think about for 3 months. They're from all different corners of my life, professional, personal, everything under the sun. Incredibly flexible and adaptable. And now, after I've generated cards in a stack, just got the stuff out, get it out, number one thing, reducing overwhelm. Don't try to carry it up here. Get it out. The second thing I'm going to do is sort myself out. And again, adaptable, flexible, very forgiving. How you sort out the cards is entirely dependent on what you need to do next. In this particular case, most often what I do with the stack, now and not now. That's it. And then I take the things that are in the now pile, then I sequence them. What actual order do these cards need to go in? And here is the secret sauce. Here is why the stack is the best. And that is, unlike a list where you can see everything and it accumulates and it's great until there's one too many items and the overwhelm shoots back up. And unlike a landscape, which is fantastic, but with a landscape, you see everything at once. Unlike a list and a landscape, the beauty of the stack is I can just grab the very next thing. I know everything has a place where it's captured, but right now, all I have to do is grab the very next card and work on that. Again, very happy to share with you and admit to the world here in this video, I've said it 1,000 times, this is nothing new to anyone who knows me, the number one reason I use visual thinking and make my thinking tangible and spatial is to reduce overwhelm. Erase overwhelm, get it out of the way. That's it.
A gift of visual thinking is that every single one of us is going around life with a lot on our mind. Lots of different things to do, emails to send, people we want to see, all sorts of stuff we're holding on up there. And then there's the inner critic who doesn't really help any of it. And it all gets really overwhelming. So fundamentally, what we want to do with all visual thinking is just get stuff out of our head and onto a piece of paper. Now, a whole lot of us know how to do it this way with a list. And if a list works for you, fantastic. Make your lists in very good health. I love these two alternatives, which is getting your ideas out on a landscape where you get to go in any direction on that piece of paper. Alternatively, you have the stack, and this is getting your ideas out, and each idea out on its own piece of paper, which allows us to move our thinking around, to sequence, to sort, all sorts of good stuff. And so importantly, as I said, just pick up the very next piece of paper we need to hold on to do the very next thing. So, shush that inner critic, erase that overwhelm, do beautiful things with visual thinking.